Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Coach Cody podcast. So this episode's going to be a little different than normal, simply because there's so much shit going on in the world that I just can't ignore it and move on and talk about health and fitness. Well, that'll still be part of it, but I also want to talk about the recent events of the election. And as you know, Donald Trump was reelected for a second term. So we get to experience another 4 years under Trump as president. It is the sequel that I definitely didn't ask for, but apparently a lot of people did. Unfortunately, it's like being forced to watch the sequel of a show that you hated the first time. And but it's a lot more, it's heavy. There's a lot more fear involved and it feels very real. Anyways, so I remember in 2016, I was very surprised that Trump was reelected. And this time, unfortunately or fortunately, I was not surprised at all. And I will say, though, I'm just as disappointed, and it doesn't take the fear away. It doesn't take the heaviness away or the anxiety, but I guess at least it helped a little not being blindsided. But I spent a lot of time on the dumpster fire that is X / formerly known as Twitter. And although it is a dumpster fire, unfortunately, it is representative of our country and what is going on. So I went to Threads when I needed a break from the dumpster fire, when I needed a chance to sit in my echo chamber and be around like-minded folks. That's when Threads was great. But it can also be a bad thing, because if you spent the majority of your time looking through Threads, you might have been more surprised about the outcome of the election. And anyways, regardless, surprised or not, this feels heavy and scary for a lot of people. So I just wanted to kind of give some, try to give some calm or some hope for the future moving forward, because hope is needed. And without it, that's when you get into despair and depression. And yeah, it's not a great mentality to be in. So anyways, first of all, I just want you to know, if you're feeling scared, feeling angry, whatever range of emotions that you're feeling right now, they're valid. And it's okay to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with feeling the things that you're feeling. So, but also, can I also say how much I've seen a lot of people on the right side of things literally making fun of and laughing at people who are genuinely afraid of what is to come. And that's also a representation of the people who, voted for him, in the sense that, we voted for a bully. He normalizes being disrespectful and just an asshole in general. And that's the part that is really, really hard to swallow and understand, because when you elect a president, you are electing a leader. And generally, you look for certain characteristics in a leader. One of those major things being, they are supposed to lead by example. They're supposed to be someone who you can look up to for guidance. Like, they're in fucking charge of the whole country. But I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want my kid or anyone to be looking up to Donald Trump. Like, I would not be electing him being like, this is such a great example for the country to look at. It just doesn't make sense to me. Neither does the whole Christianity aspect of it. I think that's where I have the biggest issue, is people who said they voted for Trump because they're voting for their Christian values. And I'd just like to be like, what values are those exactly? Because all I can think of is abortion. That is just the one thing, but everything outside of that, Trump has cheated on his spouses. He lies constantly. He's a convicted felon, and most definitely sure he has sexually assaulted women in the past. And no one's talking about these Epstein tapes that were released, where Jeffrey Epstein literally said that Trump was one of his closest friends, or was like a good friend of his for 10 years. So it's very strange that, on the right, we had people just wanting Epstein's list to be released, or saying that Epstein didn't kill himself. But they're not talking about Epstein anymore. They're talking about Diddy, but no one is talking about Epstein. And it's a little curious. It's funny how that works, right? Anyways, the Christian thing also, to continue on that, it reminds me of back in the day, right? I went to a Christian school, I grew up in the church, and the person we were not old enough to vote yet, obviously, but we did talk about it a lot, especially in history, economics, whatever. It was very important to us in the Christian faith that who we voted into office was a man of God, like a real man of God, had morals, was someone who had really high standards and who was respectful and who represented the Christian faith. And we were always taught as Christians to be the example. So what does that do to the Christian faith when we have Donald Trump leading as for an example? Or like, what do Christian parents say to their kids who voted for Trump? Like, don't pay attention to what this man says, don't follow his guidance. Is there any of that? It's just mind-boggling that they probably can't even play his speeches, or definitely cannot play any sort of footage from his rallies in school because it's too vulgar. To go from a time when it was a possibility, like people were up in arms about George Bush having possibly smoked weed in his past and being like, oh no, does this mean he's not a Christian? And questioning his moral compass because of just that. And now we are electing this man who has very transparently done a lot of things that are not in line with what Christians would deem acceptable, or something that they wouldn't vote for. And it's hilarious that, you bring these things to the forefront, and then they talk about forgiveness and how everyone has made mistakes in their past. But this man is still making mistakes in the present, and he's not sorry. He's not repenting and asking for forgiveness. Christians at this point are only encouraging him. You elected him again. But I know it's because, they think that he's going to be the one that's going to uphold the policies that they want implemented, because yay, Christian nationalism. But I won't get into that because I could go on for days, maybe another time. But there is a movie or documentary out there if you want to check it out. It's called Bad Faith, and you can watch it on Amazon Prime. Super good. Highly recommend on Christian nationalism. Anyways, now that I've vented and rambled all that bullshit, I got more. Okay. So, not only is the right, making fun of people who are genuinely scared, when we just went through, we've gone through 4 years of Trump already, and there were the trans community did get rights taken away. He banned trans people from the military, and he got rid of protections in healthcare and things like that. And now we have to go through this again. And I remember the first 4 years, I feel like I was on edge of what was going to happen to healthcare. And now we get to do that again. So he's already, talked about how he wants to make it so, basically insurance doesn't cover gender affirming surgeries. He also wants to ban that happening at all for trans youth. And, we've not even gotten started yet, but he's already talking about the things that he is going to act upon as soon as he gets in the office pertaining to trans stuff. And a big part of his campaign was also saying he wanted to keep men out of women's sports, aka he doesn't want trans women to be able to compete with women in sports. And so it's weird because there's actually not that many trans women who are or are looking to compete in sports. I can only think of a handful, but yet he can base his almost like a huge chunk of his campaign on that alone, because there's enough people out there who hate us enough to where that is enough to win their vote. Even if they're undecided, throw some trans issues in there and they're like, yes, that's got my vote for sure. So even if nothing happens, if nothing changes for trans people, which will be a miracle, the fact that the majority of this country voted for someone based off a campaign with anti-trans rhetoric feels very heavy and very hurtful. And I was trolled relentlessly this year by Trump voters who had Trump in their profile and Bible verses next to their name as well. Those were the worst ones. I always knew, I always knew it was if I go to their profile, they told me to either commit suicide or told me I was disgusting, going to hell, or to stay away from their children. That if I go to their profile, it would say like Patriot, Trump 2024, and then a Bible verse. It's very predictable. So Trump normalizes discrimination. It's not necessarily make America great again. It's like make America assholes again. Let's bring back discrimination. We're so tired of everyone being offended. So half the country is tired of being respectful human beings. All right. Fair enough, maybe? No. Anyways, that is what I find to be the most heavy, because at the end of the day, you feel like no one's got your back, or there's a large majority of the country that does not have your back and hates you for just one single thing. And it doesn't even say anything about you. It's just like a literal thing. Yes, I'm trans, but there's so much more to me. Yet people won't even give you the time of day because you're trans. And because of that, nah, fuck off, right? So that's where, this is why it gets so personal. I think a lot of people try to, try to navigate relationships and being like, trying to understand other people's perspective and why they voted the way they did. But when human rights are involved, it's a lot harder to not take it personally. This isn't just about the economy. It isn't just about like little differences in policy beliefs. This is like, hey, we don't think these people deserve to get medical attention. We don't think that these people deserve the same rights. So this is why it is hard not to take it personally. If anyone is wondering if you voted for Trump, I really want to, I try, like, I understand to a certain extent, people have differences in opinions, difference in beliefs, and, people have their reasons for voting the way that they do. But it's really hurtful, especially if there's people close to you that voted for someone who wants to take your rights away because they prioritized their money, their economy, or etc. over your right, over, you possibly losing your rights. And that's what they prioritized over you. So when someone prioritizes money and stuff like that, it's really hard to overlook. Just being real. If it's not someone I know personally, it doesn't impact me as much. It still hurts a little bit, but when I think about, someone probably voted this way, or they don't necessarily hate me, they just don't know they just don't know a trans person. And I think that might be true in a lot of cases. People just kind of, are fed whatever, they believe whatever they're fed by right-wing media. But here is also where that's really damaging. When I think back about when I first started transition in 2013, which was like a lifetime ago, people were ignorant, but they were also curious. They approached with curiosity, not just pure hate. Because the Trump campaign has been, or the right-wing media in general, has been putting out anti-trans rhetoric for a while now. And people just take that at face value, especially if they don't know a trans person. They just take in that information, they accept it as truth, and then they go and harass trans people because of all the things that they've been told. They've been told that children are having sex changes just at school during the day. That there is a massive amount of children being forced into gender transition against their will. That there is this mass insanity of children going through surgeries and hormones. But the reality is a very small amount of children are actually small amount of minors are having surgery. And when it comes to treatment for trans youth, usually it's just therapy and, other, mental health resources, but also possibly puberty blockers. Those are always the first line of defense. It's not just straight to, I feel like I'm a boy. All right, put me on testosterone and I'm going to have surgery tomorrow. Because if kids haven't even gone through puberty yet, they're not going to be put on testosterone. They're not going to have surgery because they don't even have the parts to remove at that point. But they also have to realize that, they want it. They seem to, it is a free world, right? So adults are going to be able to still transition, stuff like that. Granted, insurance isn't going to pay for it anymore, so it's going to be harder. At least that's what Trump's, trying to make happen. But when you wait too long, then you actually it's harder. When I think back about how, I wish that I would have had the opportunity to transition younger, because it could actually save me from having a top surgery. If I would have been able to go on puberty blockers, I wouldn't have needed that. So that saves a whole lot of trauma for one, but also saves, from having more surgeries than needed or wanted, So it's they only think of the negatives instead of the potential upsides to, making sure they're getting trans youth the help that they need, whether that's through therapy, puberty blockers, that sort of thing. And I know puberty blockers are controversial because you don't have long-term studies with it. And, it could have potentially permanent effects. But you know what else has permanent effects? Fucking puberty. Either way, there's consequences. There's consequences by, making trans youth go through the wrong puberty. And there's potential consequences that, there could be some side effects of puberty blockers, or maybe they do change their mind in the long run. But puberty blockers buy you time. So if there's, if we can put them on those, then there's more time to socially transition and try it out, see how things go. If they change their mind, cool. All you gotta do is stop puberty blockers. But when you go through puberty, there's no going back. And then there's a lot more work to be done. It gets more expensive. Not to mention, you have to process all the shit of like feeling misaligned in your body and feeling like you missed out on half your life because people couldn't see you for who you are because your insides didn't match with your outsides, if that makes sense. So, anyways, now that I've legitimately rambled on and on, as you can tell, I'm still in my feels a little bit, but I wanted to offer you, some things that have helped me, some mindset shifts, something to give you a little hope. So what can you do? So first things first, focus on what you can control. We cannot control the election, obviously. There's nothing we can control in political wise right now. We don't know what's going to happen. And we have to sit with that uncertainty. But if you focus on what you can control, whether that's your nutrition, fitness, spending time with friends, that sort of thing, it'll give you a little bit of sense of calm and certainty. And it's just giving you something good to focus on and strive for. So try to keep your daily routine or create a new routine if you don't have one, because it helps create structure, can help reduce anxiety. And when the world around you feels chaotic, if you're able to kind of create your own structure and not be in your own chaos at the same time, that can also be helpful. Also, be careful of what kind of media you are consuming. That can make anxiety 10 times worse. Try to make sure it's balanced, or take a break completely from social media if you feel that you're just like obsessed with being on it and trying, like, I don't know about you, but when there's uncertainty, I essentially obsess over trying to find, like, there's a solution. I want to think, oh, if I look hard enough and long enough, I'm going to find a solution to what is happening. And let me tell you, that doesn't exist. So you're just wasting time and energy. So just be careful about the media you're consuming. Don't let it lead to more depression, despair, and hopelessness. Try to keep it on the positive side. And know that there are ways that you can take action. I feel like, a lot of us were left feeling anxiety and fear because of this campaign. We were constantly told that democracy is at stake. We were going to lose our rights. So everyone, of course, is scared, and that's okay. But I feel like, I don't know that the Harris campaign did a great job on, giving people action steps moving forward. It just kind of felt like we were left hanging and we were left feeling terrified. But Elizabeth Warren to the rescue. I did see a post from her on Twitter yesterday about the steps we can take moving forward, what is to come, essentially telling us what we can expect and what to do. I will link that in the show notes for you to check out, because I think that is helpful in times of uncertainty, when you feel like you don't know what to do or what direction we're going or what is even possible. It can definitely get your mind spiraling. So check out that article. Thanks. Shout out to Elizabeth Warren for taking action and giving us what I feel like the Harris campaign should have given her supporters. All right. So again, another thing to focus on is just taking small actions, whether that's getting involved locally, volunteering, or supporting others. One way to make sure that you feel good, even if it's temporarily, is helping out other people. And it just boosts your morale. It gives you a sense of purpose. And so I think this is just a time for us to come together. And that brings us to the next thing, is find community, whether that's online or in person. This is a time where we need to lean on each other and support each other through this. And I think, as long as we do lean on each other, we will get through this, because we've been through this before. I know it's a little different. because Trump's got a little bit more power this time and it's a little bit more scary. But I know we will get through it. But we do need to lean on each other. We are going to need help. We need to support each other. So we need to make sure we're not divided amongst each other either. So if we can unite and support each other, I think that's going to go a long way. So also, self-care. Do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. And self-care, remember, isn't just bubble baths and wine and alcohol. That's not self-care. I mean, taking care of yourself like your parent would take care of you, or at least, like how a parent should take care of you, making sure you're fed, making sure you sleep and that you're staying hydrated and you're eating well. Do not let Trump steal your power. I think that's been the biggest takeaway for me and how I felt and why I wanted it. I woke up the next day. I was nervous, when it all went down. But I woke up the next day determined to not let him make me feel powerless, to not take away that sense of fight. You know what I'm saying? So in 2016, I was terrified. In 2024, I'm like, let's fuck shit up. Kindly and respectfully, keep it kind, because we don't want to stoop to their level either. So anyways, yeah, so that's the main thing, focus on what you can control, find a sense of community, get out there, volunteer, find things that give you purpose and hope, and support each other through this. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, words of advice, positive, uplifting words, or you just need a vent, go ahead and leave a comment, whether this is on YouTube or Spotify. Let's create a sense of support and community amongst ourselves. All right, guys, that is it. Peace out. I'll talk to you next time.